Okay, so we just pulled up to the job. We're in a place called Windlesham. This builder, I've been doing a few bits for him. He is a stereotypical type builder. He's quite a character, I must say. He just doesn't stop talking. Yeah, he's a nice guy, I like him. Anyway, yeah, we're in Windlesham. We've had a quick brief look around the house. There's a lot going on in there. Like Windlesham is about a 15-minute drive for me. And also there's a fantastic plastering shop which is just around the corner, dry lining supplies, full of trowels. We've just been in here, I've been going on about all the different scrims that you can get. We went in there, he said, I said, what colour scrim do you want? They got all the colours in there. They've got monster scrim, they got plasterers pink scrim. He said, I'll tell you what, we'll have pink scrim. I said, well, do you want light pink or do you want dark pink? So we've gone for dark pink scrim on this one. What have I done with it? I've thrown it in the bag. So let's get up there and have a look and see what's happening in this house. It's being bashed around all over the place, right? So we go through the front door and we are starting upstairs. Now all these walls here have been changed. The whole upstairs has been totally remodeled and they've put new floors down. So we've got a lot of this going on. This room's not ready. We're here on day work, so it's not an issue. They've put this in, look at this. Massive great big skylight going up into the roof. I've already noticed, look, it's a bit of a twist on the timbers here, so when we do put a bead up here, we're gonna have to straighten that up. And then Mark has just been telling me they're gonna put some sort of LED strip in there so it's gonna shine up, which is not something I'm particularly fond of. So we can get on with this room, probably not too much to talk about. There's no coving going back up. And because we're on day work here, it's not that much of an issue getting this plasterboard out and putting it in this room. So, let's start cracking on with the day, shall we? I've got to admit, compared to some of the jobs we were doing recently through January, being outside and stuff, this is quite a luxurious job in the sense it's really close to home. And we've got things like heaters going on. You must be able to break it.
Well, you can't, I mean, they're agile, they're good for doing something. Yeah?
Yeah. Well, I was just saying, it just reminds me of the old days when it used to be really difficult to get plastic shovels because we used to knock up floating browning in a bath and then like saying you get a plastic shovel.
What did you do, just fluff it up?
Well, it was just easier to use. It was like plastic, plastic shovels. I haven't seen one of them for a long time. Okay, so in here we've got so in this room we got so I said, what do you want, light scrim or dark scrim? And the builder liked the darker scrim, and this stuff was called simply Plasterers Pink Scrim. The lighter scrim, the lighter pink one, was that monster scrim that I told you about, which was the Tigris stuff, but that's something else. So let's have a look what we got going on in here. So these walls here are original, this was the exterior, and this has got a painted finish on there. The plumber's going to come up and he's going to take this radiator off for me. I don't touch radiators, even though it's an easy task, but I haven't got the tools to repair it should I create a leak on either of these valves. So I tend not to touch radiators anymore. I've had my fingers burnt messing around with radiators before on a Friday evening, and that's the last thing you need when you've got a call plumber out because you've got water coming out everywhere. Anyway, so these walls have been painted and are going to need a PVA. All across the top here, look, there's coving which has been removed and it's left rather a nasty amount of damage to this original plaster board. So look, you see the papers come off, there's a bit of a deficit there where the plasterer plastered up to it. So these walls look like they have been plastered rather than joint taped. So what we're going to do is get some scrims up there into these corners probably, and then we're going to PVA with a brush which is going to stabilise all this loose dust and there's a bit of a bounce in it. It's going to flap down these bits of paper that are sticking out, and then we're probably going to run a little bit of thistle bonding over it to stabilise it up and give it its strength back. Got a little chase there, that's going to need a bit of bonding filled into it. It looks fairly flush, but we'll run a trowel across there, and then this is going to need scrimming up with the fibre tape. Looks like that's where the room used to end. This little socket over here is going to change. There's a joist in the middle, so we need to patch this up, and this little socket's going to move over there. And then the only other thing of any concern is this door frame. You can see is quite proud, and they foamed it in, but they've chopped it up. So we're going to chop this foam back flush for the plasterboard, because foam's great, but you know, you can't skim over it. You need a good bit of depth of plaster over the foam. You can't, you know, because it's too bouncy. So we're probably going to bond around this door frame to dub it out and bring it out to this level. So yeah, we'll just trim that all off with a trowel. And then screw up the joints. Seams been painted. You see there's quite a lot of wobble in it from the light. See all the ripples and stuff in it. So hopefully, well, I'm quite confident it will be, when we finish plastering it, there won't be ripples like that, because we don't do that. Okay, so the task we've got in hand here is probably a little bit more mundane to you experienced plasterers. I think you might have to bear with us on this one. So I think we'll do something a little bit more for beginners and just show some very simple things that need to be done if you're thinking of tackling some plastering yourself. Now, as I said, first thing we need to do here is get some PVA going on. PVA, polyvinyl acetate adhesive, okay? So basically it's a wood glue. Now I tend to use this tub, which has a lid on it, and it works really well as a kettle. Now I've got a little bit of water here, just going to put sort of like so much in. So we're quite empty. And now we're going to add probably about the same amount of PVA to it. So the consistency we're looking for, we're going to mix it through, is kind of like single cream. There we go, and it goes, look, thick and gloopy.
Some more?
No, I'm going to, go on, you pour some in there. Can't do it with one hand.
Are we doing it?
Go on, a little bit more. Yeah, that does. And then just be roll, you can mix it up with a thimble, but it will eventually just all break down and be a nice consistent viscosity.
You put more.
Okay, so having your fluffy roller on a hole, it really helps. I can put my foot on the back of the tub here, and I can just load it up adequately so it's not all dripping out. And because it's on a roller, of course, we can get a massive, very big sweep and come at it in a methodical way, so you don't miss any. Some people like to put a bit of colour in or something in the PVA, but we're only putting this PVA on not to kill suction, just so that the plaster sticks to the painted surface, because there's not much suction on the ceiling because it has been painted. So this is why we need this to go on there, because we are physically gluing the plaster to the painted surface. So of course we're going to continue there, and let me show you this little trick up against the walls. These walls aren't very textured, so you know they're quite smooth already, but if you do have quite a heavily textured wall, little trick, when you start PVAing, start at the bottom, and when you put pressure on, you'll get a little create a little wave of PVA which will just sit on top of the roller. See it? See it there? And that will fill all any little nooks and crannies. And just work that through. You want a nice, consistent, even amount of PVA across your surface. So as you can see, we have put the scrim tape up around all these joints and in here to try and stop any cracks. And when you're PVAing, it's a good idea to notice that there's a crack here. So we're going to go and run some scrim tape, because this will be where one of the old plasterboard joints met. It kind of disappears over here. So one little tip is, if you are using PVA, get your scrim tapes up and then PVA over the top of your scrim tapes, because if you try and do it the other way around, your scrim tapes won't like sticking to wet PVA, and you're going to have to let it dry before you can get your scrim to stick to it. Okay, whilst I am doing PVAing, Shay is cutting some thin coat plaster beads, which are galvanised. Let's coat roughly first of all, because we need to get these to go around the window reveals onto here to create our new corners for us to plaster up to. So let's cut it a little bit long on purpose so you can hold your thumb up to it, get your perfect measurement, trim it to exactly where it needs to be. Now it's really important that you get corners like this to absolutely perfectly match up. So when we get this one up here, we need to get one across the top, and we need these very corners to perfectly match up. Otherwise it will give you quite a lot of trouble if that doesn't happen.
Careful of them on the floor, kneeling them.
Yes. Yeah, anytime don't throw these little bits on the floor because they're sharp.
When this is cut and it's sticking out, you just kind of angle it on there.
Just round it round to stop that little bit nibbling round. But yeah, the amount of times you throw these on the floor, then you might need to kneel down. You kneel down on one of these, you're not going to enjoy it. So normally chuck them somewhere where it's not going to be a problem.
So now you've got that one, you just check that it's same on that side.
Does it fit that size?
Nah, it doesn't. That size
So the window's out.
So what I'll probably do is I'll cut it to that size, do the other one, so I'll show you.
And then trim it off.
Yeah.
Okay, so just coming back to this window. Now, I've noticed already that these walls have been plastered. It's plasterboard, and they've been plastered. Quite often you'll find they've just been taped and jointed in an estate such as this. So they've used regular beads already on there. So if I try and... You see there's a galvanised bead there, yeah? So we're having trouble because quite often we'll use a stapler to staple up the beads. Because we're trying to go through this bead and through another bead, it's kind of having trouble getting in there. Okay, so it's kind of crimpling up on the surface. I mean, you can squash that flat with a hammer and it should be good enough, but also we're backing it up just with the scrim, and because it's a painted surface, the scrim is getting a really, really good grab onto this surface because we haven't PVA'd it yet. And you'll be surprised, using just scrim all the way up the length of the bead really does hold it very secure.
Quite easy as well, just cut two little bits like this.
Do it quite often if you have trouble like that. If this surface was really, really porous, then we would probably have trouble. We might be better off sealing it before you can get the scrim to stick to it.
Just do it like that, make sure it don't go over that obviously, because you need to plaster it. There, make sure that's on there nice. And then hold it up too.
So that's primarily getting it up there to stay. And
the reason why I really like doing this as well is because the previous plasterers, whoever did it, so this one was 1/16 and then that one's 5mm higher, which you don't really notice a lot of the time, but because I put them up to it next to each other and stuff and noticed that.
So you've pulled this one down, so
a little bit, and the scrim is what allows it so it will stay in place like that.
Yeah.
So if I can get that to be like that, like that.
Okay.
And then just do it with your fingers.
Perfect. And then just get the rest of it scrimmed up and it'll hold it solid.
Yeah.
Okay.
That'll hold it in place for now.
On the corners, it's very important that this doesn't stick out. These line up in this line perfectly. Because otherwise, when you come and plaster over this, if there's a bit of a ridge, your trowel will jigger and create a little line, and it'll be quite tricky. So this and this really does need to line up as good as you can get that. Right, beads are up. PVA'd this wall, we've PVA'd the ceiling. We just need the plumber to turn up now and get this radiator off. So, polyvinyl acetate adhesive, PVA, has been used in this fashion for quite a long time. Then they brought out another product called SBR, and that stands for styrene butane polymer resin.
How close is the calf?
I don't know yet, well I've just Google Maps it. So there's always quite often an argument, which one's best, PVA or SBR? I don't know, there's only one way to find out. Fight! Obviously we can't get PVA and SBR to fight, and we're not Harry Hill. There is a time and a place for either. My go-to is PVA because SBR is much more aggressive substance. It's very strong, and on something like that, it is a little bit of an overkill. And if you do get SBR anywhere you don't want it to get, like on tiles or on carpet or something like that, it's a complete nightmare, whereas with PVA you do get a chance. One of the drawbacks of PVA is you cannot use it outside because it will break down in moist conditions. So you might be, you know, wonder whether it's probably suitable if you have to do something in a wet room or bathroom where it's going to be high moisture area, whereas SBR is good. Now, and the other thing, sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad. PVA doesn't kill all the suction, so the plaster ideally needs a little bit of suction to be able to stick itself. Now, if you're a bit old school, you might be used to using quite a bit of suction. Now, if those walls were porous and dried, which they're not, they're just painted, so there is hardly any suction in there anyway. But if they were bare plaster and it was bone dry, then you would have trouble using PVA. You'd probably have to go over it quite a few times with PVA before you get the suction rate down to an acceptable level where you're going to have time to be able to play with it, especially if you're a beginner. If you're more experienced, you think, well, I'll probably get away with that. You've been watching the PVA, it's pulling in, and I think, well, that's probably about right, and we're going to use the suction to speed up the set of the plaster. Now, if you put SBR on there and you put it on there neat, it will probably only take one coat of neat SBR, and you're going to kill that suction dead, and you're going to get your full kind of like 3 hours of set time to play with that plaster.
Good for big sets.
Yeah, so if you've got a big area, SBR will kill all the suction in one foul swoop, whereas with PVA you might need to go over it a few times.
Sorry, guys,
So
just quickly, latte and nothing else.
Yeah, I'll just have a latte, please.
Nothing else?
Yeah, just latte, be good. So before we was rudely interrupted about what coffee I want. So yeah, in high suction areas, and if you're a beginner, you've got bone dry plaster, then maybe SBR would be the way to go to kill all the suction really efficiently and really quite quickly. In there, PVA is perfectly fine. It's going to be great, and I very rarely use SBR inside unless I really have to. So just coming back to this area, painted surface, plasterboard paper, and then when the coving's been taken off, we're into the actual powder of the plasterboard. Now this is going to be really low suction, medium suction, really high suction. So it's worth a little brush. Really getting some PVA to sit in there and kill that suction right down. Now we're going to knock up some bonding to fill this chase, and because we've got some bonding, you could probably do this with multi-finish, but we're going to fill this up with bonding, and we're going to knock up enough, and we're going to put a light tight coat of bonding all the way around these tops to really straighten these internals up, these internal corners, and we're going to use quite a large trowel to do that and use it as a rule. So here's our multi-finish, this one multi-finish, here's our thistle bonding coat. Now this is for low to medium suction and smooth backgrounds, and it likes to be 11mm thick. Okay, so that's going to be fine for us to use on that high suction area because we've already treated it with PVA. So by having a quick look here, concrete clinker blocks. Now these are quite low suction. It's a plasterboard dot and dab to it. I mean, that's 9mm, that looks to me. Unless it's to tape it up in now. I think it might be just be tapered edge they've used, so it thins out. But yeah, this is kind of quite low suction, so we don't really need to prime this up at all. So how much bonding are we going to need to knock up? Well, that is a good question, because I don't know. You kind of just got to look at it and guess, really. And that will come with experience. But one little tip you could probably go from is here, like, and imagine how much you're going to need, and then probably put some water in your bucket, and just know that whatever amount of water you got in your bucket when you add your powder, it's probably going to double in size. So probably the worst thing you can do is knock up far too much, and then you've got to get it out of the bucket and chuck it away, and you don't want to do that. So just, yeah, be on the side of caution. You can always knock up a tiny little bit more if you need to. Okay, so we knocked up our bonding. This hawk is 16 inches, this trowel is 20 inches. You don't need one that big. I'm just used to using one. I like it. we've wet our tools down already, got a bucket scoop, and we're taking straight out the bucket. Now, you're going to have to get used to doing this. Okay? There's loads of videos of people showing you how to do this, but basically, don't try to lift it up. You turn your hook to the side, it's not going to fall off, and then we take it off, okay? Then it's fine. Another little thing that newcomers will do when you've got something like this is, you'll get your bit of plaster off, you'll close one eye, you'll stick your tongue out, and you'll try to like really delicately kind of get it on there, okay? All you're doing is you're hanging it on there, and it's hanging on by a thread. You need to get a bit of confidence about it, get a decent bit on, and you need to put it in there, so you need that to push in and actually really get a good grab onto the surface you're going onto. You can fill a whole area like so, and then this is quite easy, look, we just get our trowel, use it as a rule, and there's our flat surface that's going to pick up, and it's going to be plasterable when it picks up and goes hard. Okay, so we come in this other room, which is directly the other side. You can see that's the room we're in through there. So we've got the same sort of issue going on, but this is going to need filling out. But I noticed this has been taped and jointed in here, whereas that other exterior wall had been plastered. So I'm not sure what's going on. Just one of those, I guess. Okay, so look, it's bonding, a little bit of wetness still to it, but it's virtually set. You can see it's starting to brown off in places. Just prior to setting it, I'm just going to give it another little scrape back from the trowel, take off any little protrusions. There's one there, and then we step it up, tidy that up, and I'm also going to use some staples to staple some scrim up over this little joint here and this one here, just in case there's any cracks. So it looks like we're all propped up. We've got a setting bucket, a washing out bucket, a couple of bags of multi ready to rock and roll, my 20-inch trowel and my hook. Shay's got his big walk tall boots that are like buckets that stick on your feet. Got a splash bucket down here, a drill, and we are ready to go. So what we're probably going to do is knock up enough, or a couple of bags, fill it up with water. So probably get a couple of bags in there. We'll get the ceiling on, get this back wall on, maybe this wall. I'll probably pick off the reveals on this one because it took a while for the radiator to get here, so the PVA on here is still quite wet. Remember, when you do PVA, you can't go over it when it's really soaking wet, which it still is on here because the paint is stopping any suction, so it's taking a while to dry out. Ideally, you go over it when it's tacky, but you'll be surprised how far it can go. It can almost be kind of like touch dry. You see, this one's ideal. So yeah, just gonna knock up a couple of bags and start chucking it about in there. Between the two of us, we should be, well, I don't have time to get on actually, it's about 11 o'clock, but we've got loads of prep to do all over the rest of the job, so it's first day in, set up, yeah, we're gonna smash as much of this out as we can, and we'll be here tomorrow as well, so let's get started with the knocking up, shall we?
Always use your old half bags first.
And make sure there's no lumps in there.
And if there is lumps, do it first.
Okay, tools are wet down. A little swaddle full on first of all. The hook's going to be really slippery. Move around the hook. Load up a bit more. So I've got a big fork. You can load it up right up, but this gives you a lot of room to play around and stuff like this. So one little tip. Coming over, we're going to start in the edge, but we're not going to go right into the edge. Okay, we're going to get a little bit on there. This will spread out along the length of the trail. So 1, 2, 3, and then we've got a tiny little manageable bit. That's when we come into the internal. So it's not making a great big mess and not splurging all the way down the wall. Because what happens is, if you get this, and you try and whack that straight in, you can't get right into the internal because there's too much plaster on your trail. Start away, and then come into the corner, and it's much neater. So basically, when you put on 1, 2, 3, try and push the air holes out. Newbie will do this, and try and spread it so far, you'll end up getting this. Try not to do that. Cool. And that's it, just flatten out as you go along. And then you just keep doing that until the whole ceiling's set and gone flat. That's how you plaster. Good luck. Okay, so the ceiling is virtually on. Shay's just got that last little bit to hit. He's got his devil hooves on. So he's going to get that. And then looking in the bucket, probably enough to get this back wall on. It's another big flat area. Hopefully I'll have enough just to get these reveals on as well. Just take out a little bit of awkward. Having some sort of strategy. See this surface there, that is paint surface, and there's hardly any suction on that at all because I've been watching the PVA, it's been hanging on it. These plasterboard walls will go down a lot quicker than that painted surface, so that's why I'm thinking we'll get them painted in those suction areas, rocking and rolling first, and then if we do not cut later, then we'll get the faster plasterboard on at the end of the day rather than at the beginning, and then we'll get to something like 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon and then put on a really slowly section wall and be waiting around all day just for one wall, you know, or all evening.
Yep.
So a good way is walk, start at the bottom, up, down, and then flat. On it goes, up, down, pushing the air bubbles, and then flatten. Bottom, up, push the bubbles out, and then flatten. Up, push the bubbles out, and then flatten. Repeat till sleep. Shay's been able to, watch out for that, do one full sweep with his devil hooves because he can reach it.
Pushing on, ready boy?
Hey boy.
Aye. And the same with that in here.
Little lump. Okay, so you can see that sort of like kind of 2 bags that we knocked up. Got this ceiling on, it got this wall on, and it did get these reveals on the inside. And remember, this is a painted surface, but I kind of like getting reveals out of the way. You could do this all at the same time, but I find it a little bit time consuming trying to keep this bead clean all the time, but you know, it can be done. But that much stuff left in the bucket, so this is painted surface, so ideally I should get this done next, but because of the nature of this job, we've got so much to be getting on with here, we don't have to get this room complete today. I think what we're going to do now is just knock up again and maybe just get this back wall on, using what's the residue of this plaster in here as an accelerator, and we'll get a coat on there, and then hopefully it should kind of go off at the same sort of speed as everything else, because that's the plasterboard. This was painted, that's painted, but it's a lot slower. So if we get that on with a second gauge, even though the gauge is going to be behind in time, the suction is going to pull this out level with the first coat of this and this, and then quite possibly we'll knock up our second coat and then just lay the whole thing down like it was one go. Now the thing is, if we needed to get this room completely done, then we'd struggle. But you know, you don't really want to be getting to 3 o'clock in the afternoon and then knocking up, and then you need another 3 hours just to get the last wall on. So there's so much on this job to do. We'll probably put this smaller gauge on today to start, you know, finishing around 3 o'clock-ish, and then rather than start a whole new set, we're just going to go in the room next door and just get on some prep, and then maybe get out of there about 4 o'clock and get out of there at a reasonable time. So let's have a look at the next room next door that's being lined up for us to get into. You see that they've fluffed that up, and there's the same sort of deal going on. We could spend the rest of the day here instead of setting another wall and being stuck in for a whole new set. We can get this bonded out, get things PVA'd, get some beads up, you know, and then we can stop, you know, like that, because obviously once you start plastering the wall, you've got to see it through to the end. So yeah, starting at 3 o'clock and then finishing at like 6 o'clock, worst case scenario, you know, we're on day work here. Maybe if it's on meterage, you know. Just for the record, the time right at this moment is 25 minutes past 12. So, wait for it. Socket that's going to disappear. We could have like done it a different way, but look, I've scrimmed one way, scrimmed the other way, so we've got double thickness of scrim. We've got some stuff from the first gauge. We're going to push that through, and it's going to hit that fluff on the outside. Shay's going to scrape it off flat. There you go. What are you doing? Okay, Jesus. Just leave it like that, and that'll pick up. And maybe we should knock up and get this wall on next, actually. Leave this back wall, because it's a bit bigger, isn't it? Yeah, we're going to change our minds. Not do that wall, we'll do this one. Okay, so look, we cleaned out pretty much the whole bucket. There's that little bit on my hook and a little bit there on Shay's hook, which is just enough to finish off along the bottom of this wall. So I knocked up perfect amount that we needed to get that wall on. What a plaster master I am, eh? So, these original walls here are still quite wet, so I'm thinking we'll probably get that back wall on as well, over there. Shay's going to flatten that in. I'll knock up a little bit, use the residual dirty water again to just get that on. Because it looks like we've got time. Now, it might seem like a bit of an ordeal knocking up separately for all these different walls, but believe me, that is the way to stay out of trouble, because I could touch these and think, now we need to lay down, so I'll knock up and I'll lay down, because I'm always, so everything's, as you move around the room, you're moving around the room in time. You see some guys that come in there, I'll just bang up 4 bags and we'll just start, and you start putting it on and the plaster's really wet. When you start getting to the end, the plaster's really stiff. That is exactly how you get into trouble. You've got so much and you start losing your time on the wall, because they're in such big chunks. If you break it down into smaller chunks, keeps you much better in the margins of safety, you know. It gives you a chance to turn around if you notice something's picking up and it needs your attention. You haven't pushed too fast, too hard, so you've got time to drop back if you need to. Or, in this case, as long as I don't tap too much, take it and go, do you know what? I think we can push forward a little bit more. So that's exactly what we're doing. There we go, look, the bucket is empty. I did it again. Knocked up the exact amount for that wall. So our total wastage at the moment is 0. We've thrown no plaster away. We've used every tiny little bit. Now I've thrown it on over there with lots of trial marks using Shay's 16-inch, and you can see I've lobbed it on with gay abandon, because I know Shay's going to be coming along with the 20 and flattening it in straight away behind me. Now it's well worth flattening in that first coat and get it under control, because it gives you a bigger window of opportunity to get back onto it. Let's have a look at this one. This has just had one flatten. It don't look too bad as it is. You know, if we'd left that all trail marks and stuff on there, this would be an issue at this stage, but it's not. So we can let it pick up a little bit more, get some more difference in the time between the 2 layers, and let, you know, that really kind of first coat pick up and start holding itself together and stop any sort of potential pimples or sagging or anything like that. So I think we might just knock up probably just enough just to lay the ceiling and that wall down and the reveals down, and give these a little bit of chance to pick up a little bit. So we're right up on top of the process. The timing is all really good. We're in front of the room, we're in front of the timing. When you start getting in trouble and start getting stressed out, when you start falling about behind the timing, when things are going off on you, and you're losing the room, that's when things get really stressful. And believe me, if you push it up too much, that's exactly what's going to happen to you. And then we overcooked it a little bit there. It's probably about half a hawkful left. Well, we got a second coat across the ceiling, we got a second coat on this wall, and we got the reveals laid down. So I think this one's a little bit in front of this one because they're knocked out separately, but I think we're going to be able to knock out enough for this wall and putting the second coat on. There we go, that's how much was left over. This is fat, we use our hawks to rub the fat on, so everything is on, and we're just giving it a wet brush and seeing it all the way home. And if you really wanted to, that would be the wall we get on now, but it's like 2:25 so that can be done tomorrow. Okay, the time is 22:03 and we are almost there with this room, as much as we're going to get done today, which was everything apart from this awkward wall with the radiator, screws and the valves on it. Now, like I say, I've been using this quite a big 20x5 carbon steel trowel. If you're a regular viewer of this channel, you will know because I talk about it all the time. It is a very, very big trowel, especially for a beginner, and you do have to be a bit careful with it because you can have your eye or somebody else's eye out with it, because you know, by the time when you're spinning it around, the end of that trowel is moving pretty fast, okay? But another thing that people argue about is what heavy duty that is on your wrist and on your elbow, which it's not when the gear is in its wet condition. But to trowel up with that massive great big trowel would be nice, but it is a lot of strain on your wrist, which is one of the reasons why at this stage I switched to something like this. And this is a Brafina Flex 2, which is a stainless steel trowel, and you can see it's very, very flexy. Now what this does is it gives the plaster, the wall, it's very, very shiny, smooth sheen that everybody tends to love. Okay, and it's a lot easier to trowel up with. Now you need to be careful with these because you can't use these too early on. You need to be using something like that earlier on and eliminating ripples and bumps and holes, and using this as a rule to straighten the wall up right from the outset when the gear is still quite wet. And then when it picks up, then you can drop to one of these because the ripples have already been sorted out. So yeah, there is a time and a place to use this. I mean, you could use that all the way through, but I tell you, you will feel it in your wrist at the end of the day. Okay, so I've just got 5 minutes until I need to trowel that up and give it its final trowel and brush the internals in, etc. And then we'll have a good look at it when we're done. But yeah, I tell you, I was doing a little job the other day, quite an awkward one, and I was just using a 13x5 inch carbon steel trowel, and I used it from start to finish, and I did that for kind of like a couple of days. And my wrist, even just using a 13, but it's the extra width, the 5 inches. I was like, oh, and because I'm used to troweling up with those flexi trowels. So, you know, at my age, 50 years old, dropping down to those flexi trowels is a lot less strain on your elbows and stuff. But like I say, you can't use them from the outset because they're not strong enough to get the ripples out. That's why you do need a strong trowel for getting the ripples out initially, right from the outset. And that's how you can get away with using them. I mean, I've seen guys using those flexi trowels from start to finish, and you'll see some more experienced guys on YouTube talking about them and saying the same things. They leave ripples in the walls. You don't notice it because it smooths the wall out, but you don't realize because the flexible blade just warps and goes with the flow. It doesn't plane anything off. So that's why you do need to be hitting it with those bigger, harder trowels. And that 20-inch, for me, I love it. It's brilliant. It does all that for me. And I don't need any other tools. You see some other guys with the flexible rules, like stainless steel blades on a pole and stuff like that, speed skims, all that stuff. Again, you're getting back into the territory where they kind of flex and bend and contort with the contours that are already there. So yeah, I prefer, especially with the first coat, I can feel using that straight carbon steel trowel, which is 20 inches. I can feel it flattening out, and I can see where I need to go deeper. I can see where I can go thinner because the toe of the trowel's digging in, or the heel of the trowel is digging in, and I'm able to eliminate so you'll get it on, and then when you flatten, that's when you push it around, and I'll be noticing, and all those little trowel marks are little contour lines. They're showing you where you need to bend the trowel and be able to get things flat and get across there and eliminate all those trowel marks on the first flatten, because what you're doing is you're making it flat, not smooth. These flexible things, the rules and everything, they make it really smooth too quick. You make it smooth right at the very end. You need to make it flat before you make it smooth. Okay, so there we go. The walls are done, but you know it's done because, as you can see, look here, it's browning off in places, and the residue we're getting out is now very thin and slimy. So yeah, these walls are complete. Let's give it a little bit of a light test. Show up any ripples. It's always hard to come out on video when you start doing this, but that is all looking pretty good. Let's compare it to some original. Now in here I noticed that this has been dry lined, so look, it's got a very heavy texture from the paint. You can see there's a joint there. You can see there's quite a lot of rippling. Look at all this down here. So that is the difference we are achieving. Another thing to add, I never use a corner trowel. Because we use this large carbon steel, I do most of the work with that, and it gets the internals really good, and then just at the end, just with the little inch brush, just run that gently through, and let's have a quick look at sort of internals we're getting. All across the top, I find it does give you a very sharp, I'm in the way of the light, no holes right in the very corners. So there we go. The room is, apart from that wall, complete. So there you go, that was our first day on this job, and as you can see, there's quite a lot to be getting on with. So yeah, it's one of those, got work for the foreseeable future, it would appear, my own work. So yeah, we'll give Jasper a little bit of a rest for a while because he's got another guy that can come in and help him as well. So, you know, it goes ebbs and falls and all that, and you know, who knows how the path lays itself out. So yeah, thanks for watching. If you got to the end of this one, if you are interested in, I know we've done it was one for beginners today, wasn't it? So yeah, there's loads of stuff on the playlist. Plaster Master Smurf 74. The playlist is now entitled the same as the channel. The channel is called Plaster Master Smurf 74. There is also a Facebook group that I've created And it's a nice place, actually. You don't have to answer any questions or anything to be on there. It's completely free to go on there and say what you want. Ask for advice, give advice, put your own little videos up. You know, it's a nice, relaxed one. Some like groups and pages get uppity fudge cake if you start putting clips from here or there on it and they don't like it and you get suspended. So none of that going on. So yeah, have a look on Facebook. It's a little bit more engaging rather than just the comments here on YouTube. And like I say, you can put pictures up and that, and I get to see what you look like quite often as well from your profile pictures if you come over there. So yeah, come over there on Facebook, Plastermaster74, join the group, have a chat. All right, take it easy, and I'll see you on the next video, whenever that may be.